Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz drummer and keyboardist Joe Bowden. We spoke with him in late December 2020 about his newest CD, Roots, Tales of the Urban Yoda, Doodlin. It's a great album backed by an equally great story. Enjoy. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, so do I. Thank you.
Sure. So talk about releasing an album during a pandemic. Roots, Tales of the Urban Yoda. Talk to me a little bit about the timing of this and how you feel about it.
The album itself, I guess, was in construction for maybe about 2 years. But the brunt of the music was at the end of 2019. So at that time, I wasn't going to let the pandemic stop me. So I had most of the tracks recorded and just needed to do a bit of mixing and then the mastering. Basically, I just enlisted a couple of my good friends to do the mixing on their own without my intervention. And then I would, give my input, and it kind of, came together pretty well, I thought. One track on there, which was called Jazz Days, was something that I had created during the pandemic and enlisted my two friends, Michael Shand and Sheldon Beal, to do a virtual performance for me. They kept, the core of the song, made a few alterations, but it turned out to be exactly what I was looking for. So it's difficult, I'll tell you that, because, we want to be in the studio. You want to interact with the musicians or the individuals that are mixing or mastering so you can give your input. But I think a lot of trust is what's needed, in that kind of formula.
So you have all kinds of elements along with jazz. It's, you got kind of funk and R&B and this kind of amalgamation of sound. How did you arrive at this particular vibe or sound?
I grew up listening to, the Doobie Brothers, the James Gang, James Brown, a myriad of music. So I think that just comes out when I want to perform. I kind of have to think when I get into the mainstream jazz idiom and perform there. But when it comes to this type of music, I don't have to even think. It's just something that's inherent to me and tends to come out that way. Especially after, I grew up in every time period. I'm 66, right? So I was born in 54, so I grew up with the Beatles. I grew up with, Jimi Hendrix. So I grew up in every time period. So I think all of that is something that just comes out in the composition of the music that I create,
Let's get back. You've been around for a while. Let's get back to the beginnings of your life. Talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised and kind of how music became your world.
I grew up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which was in the east. It's in the east coast of Canada, and I lived in a project area. And sports was my main focus. I wasn't really into performing as a musician, or even, I listened to a lot of music. It was in my grandfather's household, the church songs. My uncle played piano and accordion, so there's always, the Just a Closer Walk with Thee and Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World kind of songs being played, Blueberry Hill. But that was just kind of like background. Like I say, I was always into sports, so when we used to have the sporting events or the practices, we would come back from those events, and as a group of us, we would kind of perform the songs of the day. So one person would imitate the bass, boom, 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 and I would imitate the drums. We had 3 singers, 2 guitar players, and we had like a mouse band. So that was kind of, the musical training that I had when I was growing up. Eventually, around 16, we put on a concert in the Project Play area where we all cut instruments out of cardboard boxes and, drew the strings on the guitar and the keys on the cardboard piece of paper for a keyboard. I cut out some sticks out of branches, and then we put on a concert for the kids that were in the area. No instruments except for our mouth imitating the instruments. And then when I was about 18, I got invited to a friend's house who was a great drummer for a jam session, and I could play drums. It was just kind of, something that was, just came along as part of the most training that we had. So from then on, I basically went on to performing in R&B bands, never really got to jazz until I was about, I don't know, in the early 80s. I mean, I was listening to the Grover Washingtons and Crusaders, but I never considered them as a jazz musician, just kind of like funky, good vibe. And then I went to Humber College and went through the school system there and graduated with a music degree. And I was playing with some, pretty prominent musicians in the Toronto area. I had moved to Toronto in 81 to go to Humber College. And from then on, it was just, I'm hired as a sideman. And I wanted to be a leader because in order to keep working, I thought that was the best way to do it. If you're the leader of the group, then you can, push your music wherever. And in 2012, I started writing, or I wrote before that, but started putting out my writing. And 4 albums later, I'm at Roots, Tales of the Urban Yoda.
What about mentors? Who were big influences on you that really shaped the way you look at music and approach it?
Most of the people that are mentors, I guess, are the people I listen to. That was my musical training at the time. But present day, there's just so many people. Like Nat King Cole was somebody that I really kind of idolized. I guess, the Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Joe Jones, those individuals as far as drumming goes. In present day, Nate Smith and, people of that stature. My friend Larnell Lewis, who lives in Toronto here. I grew up listening to a lot of blues, too, I think. Salome Bay, which was, I guess, the first person that I played with out of Humber College, was somebody that instilled a lot of, I guess, musicality into my approach at writing and at playing. She was a great vocalist, also a great teacher. If I want to kind of think of anybody that was good for me in training, I would think of her.
So how have you been doing during COVID? This has been quite a jolt to the world of musicians that are used, especially jazz musicians that are pretty prolific with playing. What have you been doing, and how has this worked out for you?
I have a full-time day job. I work as an administrator for Humber College. Eventually, I went back to school and graduated with business management diploma and a business administration diploma, and then I got hired at Humber in the theater department. So it kind of worked out for me. I was still in the arts. They gave me the opportunity to play. As far as COVID now, like I say, I do have a steady income. Playing and the touring and all of those things are things that I miss greatly. Like one of the jazz clubs that I played at closed because of COVID. We were a house band there since 2003. I kind of miss, working with the other musicians and just making music. As far as the writing and stuff like that goes, I actually composed a whole other record called the COVID Chronicles, which is, I had a lot of time at the very beginning of the lockdowns, and so I created about 12 songs that are eventually going to be coming out, but I've still been writing. I'm practicing, at least an hour and a half every day, and so, I kind of feel that it's been helpful in the way that I do set up a routine now. But as far as the interaction with the people that I like to perform music with, it's been detrimental.
What was the first live show that you saw that really made you think, man, this is what I want to do with my life?
I'm going to say Weather Report. When I was in Toronto and I was at Humber College training, I saw Weather Report at a place called the Masonic Temple. And watching Omar Hakim play the drums, one of those things that kind of drew me to wanting to do this for the rest of my life. The same thing happened when I saw Return to Forever with, and I can't remember his name on drums, but anyway, that group was also another instrumental, experience.
Why do you love jazz? What is it that makes you come back to it? What's the big allure for you?
It's like I love all types of music. When I write, I write multiple styles of music. It's just that I tend to feel that jazz is something that gives me a bit more freedom. With, like the pop songs or the R&B songs that I write, the things are pretty regimented. The groove is continuous throughout the song. The melody changes a bit, but it's geared towards, the listener that just wants to move the body or hear the lyrics. But with jazz, it's all encompassing. Like you get the opportunity to, to set up the groove, and also to explore your musicality throughout the song itself. And then the opportunity to solo throughout the songs is something that I kind of look forward to. So I feel free at that time. So I kind of feel that that's why I like jazz. And I also, there's something about the experience of playing live jazz, and that is where you don't know what's going to come next. And if you're looking at somebody and you both have the same idea at the same time, it kind of is accelerating and propels the music a bit further. So I kind of feel the freedom, yeah.
When we do return to the stage and, the audience is back there, in the crowd, talk to me a little bit about what you hope we realize about this time away from live music.
Yeah, I heard something the other day, and it was about the 1918 pandemic, and what followed that was the Roaring 20s, where people were, secluded for so long and wanted to get out and really kind of express themselves. And I kind of feel that this might be a similar opportunity for everybody. I mean, we have lost a lot of good jazz clubs, the Jazz Standard and places like that. But I kind of feel that new places will pop up, and people will, I hope, go out more to experience what they've missed for the length of time that this pandemic is going to last.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're the one that's living your life. Who do you think you are?
I guess I'm kind of solitary individual who tends to maybe not outwardly, but I tend to like to express my feelings. I like to treat people the way that I would like to be treated, which is one of the songs I wrote on there called The Golden Rule. I also feel that, I'm not really, I guess I'm kind-hearted, but I'm pretty stubborn and obstinate. So I'm one of those type of people that you might have a hard time breaking through the shell, but once you do, then, I would be a good person to know. But as far as music goes, I want to be the best musician that I can be and not really look for the accolades. That I'm not out for the accolades. I just want to build a body of work that people can appreciate and hopefully, experience what I've experienced in writing that music.
Right on, man. Hey, thank you for taking some time out today for Neon Jazz. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it, Joe. Thank you, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Canada, America, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Joe for his time, cool, and energy. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.